Prince Harry's unexpected visit to the UK didn't just stir up whispers, it sparked a royal-level shockwave. And at the center of the storm stood Prince William, who, according to those close to the palace, was not just uneasy or disappointed, but deeply angry. And when you look closer, it's not hard to understand why. Harry landed in Britain projecting a completely different image from the one he shows in California. In Montecito, he's casual. Polo shirts, baseball caps, dark glasses, blending into the crowd as the laid-back everyman. But as soon as his feet touched London soil, the transformation was immediate. Suits pressed, posture straightened, royal mannerisms on full display. To William, it felt less like a family reunion and more like a staged act. The performance, rather than the visit itself, is what stung the most. Harry appeared to step back into a role he had so publicly renounced, slipping into royal skin as though nothing had changed. And he did it all without a single word to William. No advance notice, no consideration, no respect. Too many watching closely, the entire trip felt less like a personal journey and more like a carefully choreographed attempt to test whether the door to royal life was still ajar. But William wasn't convinced. To him, this wasn't humility, it was self-promotion dressed up as reconciliation. What fueled his frustration even more was Harry's attempt to straddle two worlds, clinging to royal prestige and tradition when convenient, while also enjoying the luxuries of freedom in California. Harry wants the grandeur of titles, the visibility of global platforms, the prestige of official events, but also the independence of Hollywood deals, lawsuits against the British government, and lifestyle branding. William sees it as a contradiction that can't be ignored, a brother wanting the best of both worlds without paying the price of commitment. Harry's stop at Clarence's house for a brief, carefully timed 54-minute conversation with King Charles didn't soften things either. In fact, for William, it made matters worse. The king's willingness to open the door, however briefly, looked to him like leniency being mistaken for loyalty. Charles acted as a father. William saw it as weakness. And while Harry's PR team framed the visit as compassionate, behind palace walls, it was seen as yet another disruption. Adding fuel to the fire was Harry's decision to mix personal family matters with public appearances. He managed to weave in a trip to a memorial linked to Ukraine, complete with carefully posed photographs and heartfelt statements that came across to William as more performance than principle. He hadn't coordinated with the royal household, hadn't sought input from the palace, and hadn't involved his brother. The only people he admitted consulting were the British government, and Meghan, an admission that only deepened William's frustration. How, he wondered, could Harry bypass the very institution he walked away from, yet still use its platform to boost his own image? Meghan's role added another layer of tension. For William, her support of Harry's trip to an active war zone seemed reckless at best. It wasn't just dangerous, it reinforced the idea that Harry is living in his own world, where headlines matter more than healing. Then came the financial gestures. Harry's $1 million donation to children in need should have been a positive moment. But the way it was staged rubbed the royal household the wrong way. Tradition dictates that royals support causes quietly, putting the spotlight on the work itself, not their personal generosity. Yet Harry's contribution was rolled out with announcements and press coverage, making the gesture appear more about image than impact. To William, this was yet another example of his brother putting himself at the center of the story. The damage, by then, was undeniable. The bond between the brothers, once considered unshakable, now looked fractured beyond repair. William, who used to rely on Harry as his closest ally, now saw only someone playing dress-up in a role he abandoned. Even the UK public, who once rallied around the brothers, seemed unmoved this time, signaling that the tide of sympathy had shifted. Inside the palace, the silence said everything. William chose not to reach out, not a message, not a phone call, not even a polite gesture. His refusal wasn't oversight, it was deliberate. And that's where the real story lies, the widening gulf between two brothers who once leaned on each other through grief and duty, but are now standing worlds apart. What struck William most was how Harry inserted himself into causes that were once shared territory. His solo appearance at the Diana Award, for instance, wasn't coordinated or collaborative. For many, it felt like Harry was hijacking a memory that was supposed to be sacred to both brothers. William's absence at the event wasn't due to scheduling, it was a statement. To palace insiders, it looked less like a tribute to their late mother and more like a calculated stunt. Then came the Ukraine trip, which William saw as the clearest example of Harry's contradictions. The same man who fought the UK government over lack of royal security, insisting Britain was unsafe for his family, now marched confidently through a war zone, surrounded by cameras. To William, it wasn't bravery, it was hypocrisy. A staged move that mocked the seriousness of both royal duty and global conflict. And hovering over all of this was King Charles's decision to grant Harry time at Clarence House. For William, who has shouldered the burden of duty, appearances, and the monarchy's future without complaint, this felt like a slap in the face. He has stood beside his father through illness, public scrutiny, and relentless responsibilities, only to see Harry, who revealed family secrets in books, interviews, and Netflix specials, welcomed back, however briefly, as if nothing had happened. For William, the frustration isn't just about protocol, it's personal. He has watched his brother transform from a beloved figure into a man consumed by headlines. Where William carried grief silently, Harry turned it into content, monetizing pain through memoirs and media deals. Each new move, each sudden return, each surprise announcement feels to William less like a step toward healing and more like manipulation. And now, with every fresh appearance, trust erodes further. William no longer believes Harry is searching for reconciliation. He believes Harry is still playing the part of a prince when it suits him, without the discipline and sacrifice the crown demands. Inside royal circles, that sentiment is spreading. More and more, Harry's attempts to balance two lives, half royal, half celebrity, are seen as disingenuous. His involvement in the Invictus Games, his speeches about unity and siblings, his charity work in the UK, all appear carefully curated to project a royal aura without accepting royal duty. When Harry spoke in Ukraine about brotherhood and emotional support, the words rang hollow to William. How could the same man who aired private arguments and accused his family of cruelty suddenly speak as though he was the voice of healing? To William, it wasn't wisdom, it was hypocrisy. The looming question now hangs in the air. What happens when Charles is gone and William takes the throne? Will Harry attempt to return to the fold, bringing Meghan back into the royal spotlight? For William, the thought of his reign being overshadowed by endless sibling rivalry is more than unsettling. It's a threat to the monarchy's stability. The royal family thrives on order, tradition, and clear roles. Harry's unpredictability undermines all three. And so, William has made his peace with distance. The sadness remains, buried beneath layers of frustration and duty, but the fantasy of reconciliation is gone. For him, there is no way forward without accountability, no return without true remorse. And as it stands, Harry seems unwilling to give either. To William, the betrayal runs deeper than protocol. It's about trust, about legacy, and about loyalty. And right now, he believes Harry has betrayed them all.